Hi, everybody. It's Ben Thorpe, Associate Research Editor with Farm Equipment Magazine, here today with Hedge, President and CEO of Birkey's Farm Store. Mike, can you give us a quick intro on who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I've been at Birkey's here for almost 30 years now. My background is I'm educated as an accountant, kind of an accounting degree and a CPA. I spent about the first 22 years at Birkey's in the chief financial officer role. And then over the last 8 or 9 years, have now been the CEO here at Birkey's. We have 17 locations, all but one in Illinois. One store is in Indiana, the rest in Illinois. Primarily ag, but we do have some construction equipment as well.
And we're here today to talk about, you guys recently announced that you are an ESOP now. And just as a quick starter, if you could give a quick explanation for people who don't know what exactly an ESOP is and what it does.
Yeah, an ESOP is an employee stock ownership plan. It's a vehicle by which the employees of the company eventually own the stock of a company. An ESOP can be 100% ESOP or it can be a partial ESOP. In our case, we went the route of 100% ESOP. So as of the first of this year, we are 100% employee owned.
Okay. Now, when did the idea to transition to an ESOP first kind of start floating around Birkey's? Was there like a moment that had people start to think about it?
Well, we've been a company that's always had transition of ownership. Over the years, we've never had a majority owner in Birkey's. In fact, I think when I joined, I believe we had 13 owners. Over time, we've bought owners out, and the business has grown, and we found ourselves in a position with about 5 owners. And the succession issue is one that's huge in the life of many farm equipment dealers, and some choose to pass it on to their children. Some may sell to a private equity firm. Some of the bigger groups may go public. Some firms look to find an investor to be able to deal with an exiting shareholder or a retiring shareholder. And, you know, we've gone down and looked at a lot of alternatives. Probably the biggest thing on my plate in the last 7 or 8 years is how are we going to fund that exit strategy over the years as I want to retire. My brother is one of our owners as well. And, you know, we're getting to an age that, you know, we're looking for an exit strategy eventually to retire. And the business has gotten so big that the barriers to entry are just very, very challenging. What we found that made the ESOP appealing was that we have an ability to create an exit strategy without upsetting the culture, without really changing the management team. We would have minor changes to the board of directors. And it kind of lets us as owners bet, if you will, on our people and the way that they will respond in the future to, I guess, secure our eventual exit. It's a, you know, in our case, you can fund an ESOP or a leveraged ESOP either with exiting shareholders holding the notes, or you can go to the outside world and use a bank or some kind of a finance company, but that tends to become more expensive. So, you know, we chose the route of taking notes back over a period of time. These are traditionally maybe 8 or 10 years. You have kind of a long runway of being paid back as you exit your ownership interest, and that allows the ESOP time to grow and to create the revenue and cash flow streams to pay you out. The one benefit of an ESOP that we found, besides the culture and the engagement of employees and those kind of things, very appealing as an ESOP, is a retirement plan. So the ESOP that owns 100% of the company at this point in time, the ESOP trust, is a retirement plan, so they are not subject to income taxes. And so when you consider the amount of money, in our particular case, the sub S corporation, that goes out both to cover the shareholder taxes and to make some kind of a distribution on profits, you get a significant amount of the cash flow that the business generates exiting every year to do that. So by not having to pay federal income taxes, you create the cash flow to fund the retirement or the buyout of the owners. You create the cash flow to then give stock to the employees, and you also create cash flow to continue growing the business.
Talking about the transition into an ESOP, what was that process like? Were there a lot of complicated hurdles you guys had to jump through, and what were some of the big pain points you hit, or was it all super easy?
Well, the marketplace has been our friend, and our timing has been really good this last year. The way that the market has gone up has been very helpful in that, the profits have been good, sales have been very robust. First thing you've got to do is kind of understand what your business is worth. We undertook that about a little over a year ago. We engaged an external accounting firm to do a business valuation. We've always had our internal valuations, but it's been a number of years since we actually had an independent firm look at our business valuations. And when we did this, we were, at the beginning, I guess, of the upswing that we've seen in the last 2 years. Our owner group was pleasantly surprised that it was pretty good, and so we made the decision to take it to the next step, probably in the first quarter of last year, and do what's called an ESOP feasibility study. And in the ESOP feasibility study, they would take that valuation one step further and say, what does this look like to a potential ESOP trustee that would look at acquiring the stock? How would they look at such a transaction? Are they confident in your ability to run the business and the management team that's going to be there afterwards? How do they feel about your forecast? What does the future look like? And then, from an owner perspective, they gave us a potential scenario that we might expect on the tax efficiency and how the cash flows might be handled from both initial cash down payment that the shareholders would receive, the kind of notes and interest rates and things that might be a part of the package, and what that would look like for each of our owners over a period of time.
All right, great. And one thing that I asked Sean Skaggs at Livingston Machinery when they entered and exited their ESOP was employee reaction. So when the news, you let your employees know that this is the direction you're going, was it mostly positive reactions for people not quite sure what it was? Was there an education process that went on?
I think there's going to be a huge education process. The reaction was overwhelmingly positive, but certainly there were questions and things that obviously the employees didn't understand. I think the challenge on us as a leadership team in the future is we've got to continue to communicate this. It's not kind of a one and done type of situation. I think over time we've got to, on a very regular basis, continue to educate employees, let them know what the ESOP is all about. And certainly as we bring new people into the business, we've got to start fresh with them and explain what the ESOP is all about and what it means to them and to their retirement. But overwhelmingly very positive. We had some initial conversations about what we had done right after we closed the deal. And then in the last about two weeks ago, we had a video calls with all of our stores, with the accounting firm and the law firm and the trustee that represented us, and answered a lot of specifics about how it would work and what it would mean for the employees. So overall, I think it's very good. I think they understand, most of them, that we've done a very good thing for them. I just don't think at this point they have a sense of the magnitude of what the ESOP may mean.
Sure. Right. Okay. And one thing I noticed, in the press release was, I think you had said that the ESOP is going to help Birkey's with recruiting and retaining employees. And you said something to the effect that the ESOPs are more profitable and they have less turnover. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the connection between the ESOP and maybe preserving that employee culture and keeping people, like you said?
Well, obviously, when we go to recruit, being able not only to have a full package of benefits and a 401k plan and health insurance and those things, having the added benefit that all you have to do is come and work here and meet the requirements for the hours and the age, and you're going to be given stock in the company every year, is a huge benefit. And we think that gives us a leg up on many other companies that may be trying to recruit employees. I think once you get employees into receiving the shares and they have a balance, begin to understand how that grows, I think from a retention standpoint, becomes a huge motivator for somebody to stay and not just look at little things to maybe jump ship. So we already have good retention of our people. We think this should enhance it.
Great. We already talked about the federal income tax benefit that comes along with the ESOP. But again, when I interviewed Sean Skaggs at Livingston, when they transitioned away from their ESOP into a private equity investment, something that he had talked about was their ESOP had ran for 11 years. And the initial thinking was retirement. I think at that point, their previous owner was retiring. He wanted good retirement for the employees when he left. And he said that around the time of the downturn, 2015, 2016, when there were some layoffs, that created what he called a repurchase bubble for the shares that are repurchased at retirement. Is that something that Birkey's has thought about? Are there kind of issues like that down the road that you're planning for?
Well, every ESOP is going to have repurchase obligations. Some of them happen if employees leave and some of the small balances get cashed out. Some of the larger balances, folks have to wait until they get to retirement age. A lot depends on how the ESOP document is structured. In our particular case, there's not a lot of early payouts when people leave until they get to retirement. It's pretty focused on them reaching an age of 62 to get payouts. And so the one positive thing is that the people that designed our ESOP were very conservative in the way that they put it together. An ESOP, if they're too aggressive at distributing shares early in the life of the ESOP, then the repurchase obligations probably come much quicker. If the vesting schedule isn't long enough, repurchase options, obligations could come quicker. In our particular case, the shares are allocated over 40 years, which sounds like a huge time horizon, but that will allow the ESOP to be more conservative. It also leaves shares available for new hires pretty much indefinitely. You can get yourself in trouble by thinking of all the people that are here now distributing the shares to the people that work for you now, and 5 years from now you don't have a meaningful amount of stock to give them, and so you lose some of your momentum. But you've also got to educate folks. You've got to educate them, especially in our business. I mean, there's going to be ups and downs. We're going to see the stock value move as the industry moves to some degree, and so I think it behooves us to be very open in our communication with them about what's going on with the business and the fact that it will move up and down, and there are cycles. No different than our investment advisor for our 401k communicates with our folks that you're in this for the long haul. You don't need the money till you're 62 or till you're ready to retire. So, it's fine that there are going to be these ups and downs that are going to have to ride the cycles. So that really puts a burden on us to make sure we do a good job of communicating this. But I think we've got a group of employees that will understand and appreciate that.
Great. And as long as we're still on the financial side of things, we've talked about repurchase liability, the income tax benefits. Is there anything else about an ESOP? Because I'm certainly not an expert on how these things work. I just want to make sure, is there any other financial incentive that Birkey's gets from transitioning to this ESOP that we haven't covered?
By not paying the taxes, you not only have the cash flow to fund the owner notes, and to give stock to the employees. But I really do believe it's going to generate surplus cash flow in the business that then we can use to go and do acquisitions. Over the years, we've done a number of acquisitions, but as some of us have gotten older, there's a little bit of that indecision, I guess, at times on, do you go and invest more and grow the business, or do you keep some of that reserve put back so that you can repurchase stock, maybe of a retiring shareholder at some point? This kind of takes that off the table, and we're going to generate cash flow, and I think it's really going to open up our business to grow once we kind of get up and moving with this.
Sure. No, that makes sense. Okay. You guys have gone through all this. You're an ESOP now. What would you say to dealers who are maybe considering making this move? What advice would you give them on how to do it, who should do it, and who should not do it?
The biggest piece of advice I can get is make sure you thoroughly vet the accounting firm and the legal people that are doing this. Make sure they have a lot of experience. I would be looking for somebody that is going to be conservative in their approach with it. But there's a lot of people out there that are doing them. But, from our aspect, we feel like we hit a home run with both the accounting firm that we used and the law firm that we used. And, they did a great job for us. They didn't create expectations that were unreasonable. They probably undersold us on where we would be, and they over-delivered. And because they're tied in with the ESOP associations, both the law firm and the accounting firm, they had good relationships with the potential trustees that we interviewed, the law firms that work the other side of the transaction, because it's a negotiation, and you're negotiating against a trustee and their counsel and their evaluation people. And it just helped that all these people have done deals together, and they've been on both sides of the transactions. And so I would certainly recommend that somebody get somebody that is highly engaged in the business and well connected there.
All right.
I talk to dealers all the time, and even since we've done this, I probably talked to half a dozen dealers. And the capital transition in our business is one of the hardest things we ever face. And it doesn't go away. There comes a time to address it. And in our particular case, myself and my CFO went to an ESOP conference probably 4 or 5 years ago, when it was just one of a half a dozen different options that we were looking at. But it put us in the mix with people that were, I guess, in that space. It made introductions to accounting firms and other folks that we've kind of kept in touch with. And, at the point where our group was really ready to make a move, felt like we already had a basic introduction. We knew some of the players, and it sure made it a lot smoother for us to jump in, because if we hadn't have done that, we had been starting completely from scratch. So, do it well in advance. Don't wait. My advice would be don't wait until it's the time that you have to do something. Get out ahead of it. It allows you to keep the management structure intact. Our board is staying intact, although we will be required to bring in a couple outside board members. But we can continue to run the business until such time that we're ready to make an exit, till some of us are ready to retire. We just think everything has worked out well. It's kind of a win-win for everybody.
Great. Glad it's working well for you guys. Okay. Well, Mike, this has been fantastic. Thanks for teaching us all about what you guys are doing. And thanks so much for your time.
Great. Thanks, Ben.